Hello everyone, Yom Tov. Well, sitting around the kitchen table, and this week it's our real crime stories again. And as all of us sit around the kitchen table and mill about the kitchen, drinking coffee, eating sandwiches, eating cake, and generally just hanging out together, we're going to be talking about some murders that happened in Jennings, Louisiana. Now, this is a murder or murders that I've been asked to cover this week by one of our long time haveners, alirpa77. I don't know the first name, so I'm just going to say that this was it's a dedicated video to you, alirpa, because you asked me if I would cover this. You said you knew most of the girls who unfortunately lost their lives, so I've looked into it. There's a lot to the story, so I'm going to have to look at the laptop the way I do, but the way I approach all our real crime stories is the fact that we are all just meeting up together, and one of the topics that we're going to talk about is this murder. So that's what's happening this week. So what I managed to gather was this. There was a guy called Jerry Jackson, retired guy, and he was going fishing, and he cast out his line. He was on the under the bridge, I think, or beside the bridge of the Grand Marais Canal, or the Grand Marais, because I know Louisiana they also speak French. And this was near a small town called Jennings in Louisiana. This is where alirpa is from. So he was busy fishing, threw out his line, and as he's busy fishing, he thought he saw a mannequin floating in the water. But unfortunately, it wasn't a mannequin. It turned out to be the body of a woman. He went to get a better look. He saw it was a human body, and it turned out to be 28-year-old Loretta Lynn Chason Lewis. And this canal, it was located in Jefferson Davis Parish. And this happened on the 20th of May, 2005. The local police started an investigation into her death, but unfortunately, because she had a history of drug abuse and because she was a prostitute, the police didn't really what can I say, they didn't do much. They didn't put much effort into finding out who our murderer was. And that's a real shame, because at the end of the day, sex workers are people too. They're still humans too, and they should be accorded the same courtesy as any other human being who happens to fall at the hands of a murderer. And that's just my opinion as I'm sitting here around the kitchen table. Right, so her death was quickly labelled as just an unfortunate fallout of the rampant drug trade that ran through the area, so the police didn't take it seriously. But then a month later, another body was found in a different canal, also winding through the same area of Jennings. This time, it was 30-year-old Ernestine Patterson, and she was also a locally known sex worker. I know they keep saying these women were prostitutes, but I don't know, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I think that prostitute it's quite derogatory. A lot of these women wouldn't do this job, this sex working. I mean, I know some enjoy it, but I know a lot of them are driven to it. They're driven to it through financial need because they have children to look after. A lot of them are women who have had their male partners walk out on them, and it's the only work that they can do and look after their families at the same time. So as far as I'm concerned, excuse me, I'm clearing my throat to make way for my truth, I think. As far as I'm concerned, sex workers are human beings too, and they should be accorded the respect. It's a very, very dangerous occupation, an extremely dangerous occupation. And my personal belief is that a lot of women, especially if they happen to become addicted to drugs, being a sex worker is the only way that they pay for their drugs. Nobody tends to ask them how they managed to get into the drug scene. It could be for any reason. It could be to block out a trauma. It could have started off as recreational and then become more serious. And then before you know it, your life is going down a horrible path. And it takes an awful lot of guts and courage to get clean. So, as far as I am concerned, they deserve every respect. And they should be treated with respect. I'm not saying I'm not agreeing with what they do. I couldn't do it. But that's not because I'm better than they are. It's got nothing to do with that. It's not something I would feel comfortable with. I think that you've got to have a spine made of steel. I think you've got to have a real determination to do it. And obviously, like I said, there are mitigating circumstances as to why some of the women have to do it. And in some cases, I think the women need to be supported, not prosecuted. What good does it do? Being arrested, charged, given a huge fine, and how are they going to pay that fine off? Think about it. It's a vicious circle. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. Now, with Ernestine Patterson, her throat was slashed. And the local police said this one is a homicide. 2 men were held for second-degree murder in her case, but the charges were later dropped because there was no credible evidence. Then the bodies of 5 more women were found between 2007 and 2008. 2009. All seemingly dumped in the murky waterways that lined the small town of Jennings. Now, in a town that was only home to 10,000 people, the body count was really starting to attract attention. The other women were identified as Kristen Gary Lopez, age 21, Whitney Dubois, 26, Laconia Muggy Brown, age 23, Crystal Shea Benoit Zeno, age 24, Brittany Gary, age 17, and Nicole Guillory, age 26. Now, I think it is important to name these ladies because at the end of the day, they are all victims. And we all know and recognise that all victims should be remembered. They should never be forgotten. You know, and especially if they haven't received justice. Just because they're dead doesn't mean that they still aren't deserving of justice. Because their souls cry out for justice. And that's just my personal opinion. That's just how I feel. As human beings, as women, they deserve the same amount of justice, recognition, and respect. Never mind what they did for a living, they were human beings and they were the victims of a murderer or murderess. Because you could be you're looking at a serial killer here if it's just one person. Now, by the time they were all discovered, their bodies were such in a advanced state of decomposition that the coroner couldn't really say how they died. He sort of put it down to asphyxia, which is like strangulation, because it was about the only label that he could give them when it came to the findings of the autopsies. Now, all these women were known as the Jeff Davis Eight. And they were not only linked to each other through their deaths, but also through their lives. And this crime was also known as murder in the Bayou. Now, they'd all been known to each other. They were all sex workers in the area. It was also later revealed they'd all worked as criminal informants for the local police at one point or other before their bodies were found. Now, some of the victims were related in the case of cousins Kristen Gary Lopez and Brittany Gary, or at some point they shared the same home. In the case of Kristen Gary Lopez, had lived with Crystal Benoit before she was killed in 2008. So there was a journalist called Ethan Brown who helped to write this documentary series called Murder in the Bayou. And Ethan Brown wrote of the investigation at the time that the victims were mired in poverty and mental illness, and all had hustled Jennings South Side streets for drugs and sex. And he suggests this is why the case became convoluted and corrupt. Now, in December 2008, an investigative team made up of delegates from federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies came together to search the area for what they thought was a serial killer at work. Now, according to an article in the New York Times, it was said the deaths have caused considerable soul searching among victims' relatives here, worried about the plague of drugs and prostitution that might have contributed to the women's deaths. However, as the investigation went on, a wave of mistrust built up in the community over how the police were handling the investigation. The New York Times reported again there's been anger at what many local residents view as missteps by the sheriff's investigators, like lost or missing evidence, and fury at the possibility that a serial killer might be loose. In another perceived misstep with the case, the New York Times also reported that the chief investigator bought a pickup truck from an inmate known to be friends with one of the victims. A witness later said that she saw Lopez, the third victim, in the truck on the day of her disappearance, but by then the vehicle had already been washed and resold. Now, that seems quite dodgy to me. I don't know what you think. Excuse me, I must get some extra light in here. Son, you pop the light on, please. Sorry, folks, for the interruption, but it is getting slightly dark now. Would you pop the light on, please? Thank you so much. Both. They're both on. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, that's helped, hasn't it? Right. You can see more of my new hairdo. See, sorry, I keep looking into the viewfinder. I don't know why. But you can see more because I had my hair done at the weekend, so you can... As we're sitting around the kitchen table, I can imagine you all saying, "Oh, you've had your hair done? Looks great." At least I hope that's what you're saying. Right. So, anyway, the New York Times reported that they thought a serial killer was on the loose. And in another perceived misstep with the case, the New York Times also noted that the chief investigator... Oh, I've done that one. So, yes, so that's what I was going to say. It sounds slightly... There's husband in the background. Do you want to say hello while I'm talking about this murder?
Hello.
There's Mr. Hedder. He's busy making our dinner as I'm busy doing this this video. But he's off for a minute. He'll probably be back in 5. But anyway, he's just popped in to put in an appearance. I'm sure he loves having a cameo in these videos, you know. I'm sure he does. I think it's quite suspicious, don't you, that the chief investigator bought a pickup truck from an inmate known to be friends with one of the victims. And then the third victim gets in the pickup truck and then she disappears. And then the pickup truck is very quickly washed and resold. So doesn't that mean that the chief investigators had something to do with this? Or is that just me being suspicious? Because let's listen again to what was said. The New York Times noted that the chief investigator bought a pickup truck from an inmate known to be friends of one of the victims. A witness later said she saw Lopez, the third victim, in the truck on the day of her disappearance, but by then the vehicle had already been washed and resold. That says to me that the chief investigator, if he didn't have anything to do with it, then somebody did. But to organise all of that sounds a bit dodgy to me. Now, apparently, according to Ethan Brown, this particular investigator was fined and removed from the case and then placed in charge of evidence at the parish sheriff's office. I don't like that. I don't like that sort of thing. It stinks. So, Ethan Brown wrote an article entitled "Who Killed the Jeff Davis Eight?" because with it happening in Jefferson Davis County, that's what they had named this case, the Jeff Davis Eight. Ethan Brown wrote that after conducting witness interviews and foraging through documents, he concluded that the Jeff Davis Eight killings had different yet interconnected lead suspects, meaning that the deaths were not just the work of one killer. Now, he says, in 2007, Richard himself was briefly charged in the Lopez killing, but those charges were dropped after witnesses provided conflicting statements and a key piece of physical evidence was mishandled. He remains free and is often perched on the porch of his family home in Jennings. Now, Lopez's mother, Melissa Daigle, told Brown she knew what was going on. They were scared, them girls. I think she knew about it and was too scared to say. As the case went on, there were multiple allegations of misconduct against the investigative task force. A series of witnesses who were interviewed stated that local law enforcement officials were completely implicated in the murders. In 2009, the sheriff ordered that every investigator working on the Jeff Davis 8 case be swabbed for DNA in response to the overwhelming accusations against them and their investigation into the murders. However, the office refused to comment on the results of the DNA testing. I don't know about you, is this starting to smell? Because it's distinctly starting to leave a very bad smell under my nose. Some people believe that these officials have played a role in the murders of the Jeff Davis 8. In the book about the case written by Brown, there were allegations that officers had sex with the women who later died. A multitude of evidence from the case of the Jeff Davis 8 remains missing. To this day, the murders of the women known as the Jeff Davis 8 remain unsolved, and multiple police officers who have been accused of playing a part in or covering up their deaths still walk free. So I would like to know what you think, because, and this is just my opinion, as is everything related to this case, it's all our opinions, which we are entitled to have, right? It seems to me that with big chunks of paperwork going missing, evidence going missing, the results of the DNA not being disclosed, the chief investigator buying a pickup truck from an inmate, then Kristen Lopez is seen in the same pickup truck, and then she's never seen again until she's found in the canal. And that same day, the truck is washed and sold on. And the investigator is fined, given a slap on the wrist, and they're given a desk job in the sheriff's office. Shouldn't he have been investigated? I mean, thoroughly, properly investigated? And asked, why did you wash the truck? Why was it necessary to wash the truck? You picked up this truck, it was obviously clean, or was it clean when you got it? But if Miss Lopez was seen in your truck, and then after that she's never seen again, what happened to her? You know, where did you take her? Did you go on to have sex with her? You know, did you drop her off somewhere? Did you murder her? Why isn't he in jail? You see, this case stinks to me of corruption. There have been no more murders that I'm aware of in Jennings, Louisiana since 2009. So that's now 11 years have gone by, and there's been no further movement on this case. The police are literally, they'll all be singing from the same hymn sheet. They'll have all got the stories, all, as far as they're concerned, straight. So if anyone goes in to try and cross-examine them, they've already got their stories. They will, I have no doubt, fix their alibis. They say that there's more than one killer. Yeah, I probably would imagine there is. I would imagine, having read this, that I'm going to say at least one policeman killed one of these sex workers. I believe the one that was with Miss Lopez, I definitely think he killed her. Because why wash the truck and sell it on so quickly? That does not make sense to me. That really does not make any sense to me. You know, if you get a vehicle that quickly and then sell it on just as quickly, if you're not a car salesman, then why? And why wash it out thoroughly and then sell it on? Because you're trying to get rid of evidence. And as the coroner said, the bodies were so badly decomposed. All he could say was, well, they died of asphyxia. That's all he could say. So all we have to go on is the fact that each one of them was strangled. And it may well have been more than one killer. We don't know if it started off with a policeman killing them or just, I don't know who. I don't know whether they've all been dispatched by the police. You know, because, let's face it, police have been corrupted before. Police have been found up to their eyeballs in drugs and messing about with sex workers. It's not the first time. I very much doubt it will be the last, but it shouldn't be at all. So, in honour of those who passed, I'm going to read out their names again and just say out to the universe that I am very sorry for the way that you passed, and I hope one day you receive the justice that you so richly and rightly deserve. So to Loretta Lynn Chesson Lewis, age 28, 30-year-old Ernestine Patterson, Kristen Gary Lopez, age 21, Whitney Dubois, age 26, Laconia Muggy Brown, 23, Crystal Shea Benoit Zeno, 24, Brittany Gary, age 17, and Nicole Guillory, age 26. Eight young women. The youngest age 17, the oldest age 30. We must never forget the victims. I hope one day someone is brave enough to take on the sheriff and the other members of that corrupt police department and serve them a dish full of justice. Because those girls were someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's granddaughter, someone's niece, someone's aunt, someone's sister. They weren't just sex workers. Well, that's what we've been talking around about at the kitchen table this week. I know that someone's asked me about Jeffrey Dahmer. If you want me to do him next week, I will, unless one of you wants to suggest someone else that you'd rather talk about around the kitchen table. I can do that too, but I think I will do Jeffrey Dahmer next week. Any suggestions, I'll put them up for the week after, and so on. And I know it's not exactly the right thing to say, that you've got more crime stories to look forward to, but it is what it is, isn't it? And we'll do what we always do. We'll remember the victims, and we'll talk about it around the kitchen table. Well, I want to thank you very much for being here. Thank you very much again for watching and for listening to me telling the story of all these victims. Please let me know what you thought about it in the comments and we can have a discussion. And thank you for... I know you'll all remember the victims, so thank you for doing that too. I do love you all. I'm going to say bye-bye to you for now, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. Bye-bye.